Oh, today is all about FAFSA, baby. We about to have that talk on the other side. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. Our lovely, wonderful Jubilee cannot join us today, but she sends her love. But we do have the dynamic duo on top. These guys that have been killing it for a long time. The beard of knowledge or wisdom, I will never commit it to memory. We got David and we got Omar Yanar. He is here with us in the flesh. We don't know what foreign cave he's been kicking it at. He's really Bruce Wayne, ladies and gentlemen. He's Bruce Wayne being Batman. See, you didn't know. You thought Batman was white, but he's an ethnic man who is ethnically ambiguous, man. How you fellas doing today, man?
That is exactly right, man.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I said, David doing all right. I was like, that's exactly right, man. It's ethically ambiguous.
I love it. I love it. We all need a friend like you that likes to travel because we can go anywhere. It's just like he's there, man. Nah, man. Today I'm really excited about this episode. David, this is your episode, and you were wanting to talk about FAFSA. Jubilee's not here. I'm gonna just throw it to you, and if you choose to do check-ins, that's your prerogative. If you don't, I'm not mad at you.
It's my prerogative.
I'm not mad at you if you don't do a check-in. But David, why don't you take us away, brother?
We're definitely checking in.
The spirit of Jubilee lives on.
Yeah.
Oh, man, we love it.
Let's see. I normally have like a lisp in my voice, which I'm sure you've noticed. But something happened, I think in my sleep, I bit my tongue. And so I sound a little extra, like, I don't know. It's weird. I thought I was getting sick. And then it turns out I had like a bad dream or something. And I got to get a mouth guard. Long story short, something's going on with my mouth. I'm okay, but I might sound a little off. So there's that. But in terms of checking in, we've got to enjoy two different kind of cultural experiences here in San Diego over the last couple of days. On Saturday, we got to attend Chicano Park Day. Chicano Park is a very famous historical space in Logan Heights neighborhood of San Diego. And essentially it's the Latino and Latina cultural center of the city, right? So you have this huge event with Aztec dancers and food and music, and the lowrider, the lowriders that they had were incredible. Like cars, I mean, even going back as far as like the 1930s, all the way up to modern day. So it's really a celebration of brown culture, and got to go and celebrate with three generations. My son, myself, and my father. We used to hang out there like in the back in the 70s and the 80s when we were little chavalitos. But it's still going strong. The culture definitely is alive and vibrant, and it's happening in San Diego. So shout out to Chicano Park Day. Also, last night, got to attend a conference, not a conference, a concert. Sorry. Got to see Willie Nelson.
Okay. All right.
Willie Nelson. Saw Willie Nelson.
Did he sing Whiskey River 55 times in a row?
No, he didn't. He sang it once.
No.
You've got to recognize this man. This man has
still
been
kicking.
He's been writing music since the 1950s, right? And he is now 90 years old. And did a huge show here. I'm sure everybody was high. I'm sure he was. I hope he was.
In concert without, come on, man.
Yeah, it was. It's probably one of the last times that we'll see him. I mean, he seems healthy, but he's also 90, so anything can happen. But definitely like a living legend, and Yeah, so we've been enjoying some of the local, like I say, cultural offerings that San Diego has to offer.
That's dope, man. As Omar goes, have you been able to see Santana live? That's how I feel about Santana too. I love Santana. Have you been able to see him live?
I've seen Santana. Yep.
Okay.
I have not, no.
Yep.
But my uncle will tell you that Santana.
He did Black Magic Woman like 30 times in a row.
Little Black Magic Woman.
I love Santana.
That song plays on on El Paso radio still to this day, every day. Every day, dude.
Yeah, El Paso radio, like they're playing music in El Paso radio that's like they're still playing like Huey Lewis and the News.
Correct. That's new rock, by the way. That's new.
Like, yeah.
New rock.
Like at a 20-year time warp.
We got some new rock coming for you. Def Leppard. I was like, Def Leppard came out with a new album. Pump some shit on me. Yeah.
Brand new hip hop by Naughty by Nature.
That's exactly right. That is brand new hip hop by Cypress Hill, who they play ad nauseum also single day, man.
Hey, man. I love it. Anywhere I can get some Cool G rap, some fresh Cool G rap. How you doing, Omar?
Yeah. Sure, Cool G rap, man. I am badass, man. A lot of stuff going on in El Paso. Let me say this. I saw Willie Nelson live in Sacramento, of all places. He was high as hell. This is about 20 years ago. Didn't know what was happening. He sang Whiskey River like 18 times. It was just like, fuck it. Like just playing Whiskey River 18 times. And the crowd was like, Willie! And again, I would not exactly like, I am a Texan because I was like born in El Paso, although most of Texas would say El Paso is not part of Texas. And it's not like I'm trying to get into that club, to be perfectly honest with you, although I do love Texas and El Paso. They just wouldn't have me in that kind of club. I will say that amongst Texans, Willie Nelson is not just a living legend, man. Like that is like religion, dude. That's the Highwaymen. That's Johnny Cash. That's Waylon Jennings. That's Chris Christopherson. That's Willie Nelson. They invented outlaw country. They were the ones that defied Nashville and said, we're going to do it our way, the Texas way, which, by the way, has sprouted an incredible subgenre of Texas country music, of which a lot of people fall under, man. So how am I, man? I am ready to talk some shit. I want to talk some shit about Texas country music. I want to talk some shit about this FAUSA thing. I'm ready to talk some shit political. My only check-in item, which I'm trying to make.
He always does this, David.
Exactly.
He's 5 minutes in. He's like, but my only check-in
item is I heard a podcast with my buddy Sammy Nassar, badass, about what it was like growing up in El Paso. And I mean, he didn't even get into the wild stories. I really want to start writing all these stories down, but one of these days we may just have to divert the entirety or have another podcast just to talk about some of these stories because they're wild. Yeah. They're just wild, man. And I think it doesn't necessarily tie in educationally as much as it is like what were 9 through 12 students doing in El Paso, Texas from say 1985 to about the year 2000. In this 15-year gap, and it was wild in and out partying in a foreign country. So good stuff, man. But today we're going to wild out on FAUSA is what I'm to understand.
Let's do it.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. Charles, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. I think, I was just taking it in, man. Like, I shared this post earlier, but there's a lot of work that started on like a napkin or like scribbles in a notepad and, being able to take that stuff into execution, but not just that, but like to actually have some help and like not feel guilty about having help. And you two gentlemen have been very, very helpful in that. I really don't know how to accept help. So it's kind of overwhelming, man. It's really cool and getting to do some really cool stuff. I got to do some cool stuff today. And I'm glad that I, got a little bit of energy left to do this episode, man. So I'm blessed. I'm really, truly like blessed. Like I'm tired, but I'm not tired like my grandmother, right? Like her back is hurting because she's standing up and working all day. Or David, when you tell the story of your parents and grandparents, like, doing like, crops and things like that, or Omar, like we work hard and I don't want to downplay what any of us do because we all work really hard, but it's like there's levels. You know what I'm saying? Like we not checking in and hey, did you do my punch card for me? You know what I'm saying? So it's just a blessing, man. And I'm just trying to make sure I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, delegation is the key to happiness. So
there you go.
Remember that. All right,
let's happy wife, happy life, David.
That too. All right, let's jump into this. So today we're going to talk about the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. Some basic definitions. If you are going to be seeking out any kind of like federal, even like state, it's tied to like federal and state money. This is what graduating seniors apply for financial aid and some scholarships, right? But mainly like the big federal programs, federal Pell Grants, federal like Stafford loans. There's a number of others, but this is basically where most of the financial aid that's not like private university, like endowment money, gets distributed. It's great that it's one application, and there has been an effort to simplify the FAFSA starting this year, which has been a disaster if you haven't heard. And the reason why I wanted to do the show is because you actually don't hear about it a lot, but it's impacting the lives of so many young people that depend on this critical aid. We know, because we talk about it on this show, that young college-bound Latinos, Latinas, African-American students are not showing up in the numbers according to like the overall demographic, right? Our numbers are smaller. There's a number of different reasons for that. And so when you have a glitch in a system that is designed to, provide financial resources, it creates a much bigger issue for Black and brown people and low-income people that depend on this money. So without going into too much detail, the FAFSA was supposed to be simplified this year. I think the person behind the act, there was actually a federal act, was the former governor of Tennessee, Lamar Alexander. And the idea was to simplify it. But it sounds like what happened is, instead of like, if you're going to redesign any system, hey, Bill, you want to start by, you do a redesign and then you kind of like prototype and then you kind of phase in. But it sounds like what they did here is kind of an all-in total revamp from one year to the next. And there are all kinds of glitches having to do, I believe, with like social security numbers and other issues. It still is not completely worked out. Where normally, your federal financial aid stuff is already pretty much sorted out, like in, I think, February, March, even maybe April. But the system is still not working as it was designed. And it's causing a lot of young people to, make other plans, right? If it's uncertain if you will get aid to attend college, many people are doing plan B, which is like probably community college and or just going into the workforce, right? Mm-hmm. And that's impacting the real lives of young people. So that's kind of the foundation for what it is that we're going to be talking about. I would love to hear from both of you just quickly. Like, what's your quick take? What was your experience with financial aid going to, college or university? Well, did you depend on this system?
Well, look, let me get mine out the way, because they do things different at the nice highfalutin schools my brother goes to, man. So, I got to mess with you about the greatness that you went through, Omar. I'm dealing with FAFSA today. Like, I had to do a consolidation last week, so I could potentially qualify for the expungement. And what happens with that is it makes a number that's already big, it consolidates it, it makes that number even bigger. And then you have to go through this process through the government where, it's you get these forms where you can take them if you worked in nonprofit to kind of prove you've had, you know, that 10 plus years of service. It's just pretty nerve wracking. And it was nerve wracking when I was a student. And partially when I started doing youth work, it was based off of my experience with FAFSA. I got that FAFSA, for those that don't know, they always take a percentage of young people that do FAFSA, and then they'll audit you, or you will have to, like, you know, show and prove to keep the system good. I got audited every single year I did FAFSA, every year. And it sucked, man. And there was my father used to apparently trains wreck a lot. I don't know if you all know that. So my father had this job, and where when trains derailed, they would clean up like the waste and do all kind of stuff. Like, this thing kind of happens. And there was this huge, I don't know if it was Amtrak or some freighters or whatever, but this huge train wreck in Central California. And my father got a lot of overtime, and I got audited, and I essentially lost it. His extra income from working that knocked me out of contention, even though my parents didn't give me any money for college. They just didn't have it like that. But I essentially lost all my financial aid for a quarter, and definitely thought about leaving school. It was real touch and go. I had to take out some emergency loans. I had to go spend a lot of time in the financial aid office. I mean, it was really, really, really stressful.
Yeah.
And I definitely almost left school. So when I started working with youth, I would do activities like, hey, I'm going to give you these papers right now, put them in a safe place, because at any random point, I'm going to ask you to summon these. And if you don't get, you know, your stipend, or, you know, whatever, you don't get that. And we had some very well-meaning young people that worked with us that mentored the students, but they were always trying to give the students a break. That's what they thought equity was. They were like white kids that were privileged that went to school in like Minnesota, and like, you know, these little black and brown kids needed a break. And I used to go off on them like, stop, like, the system doesn't care. Like, and I had them do that because every time I got audited, I had a certain amount of time for me to produce all these files, all these things. Just to say, not in short, in long, I did what you just did, Omar. I've had some very interesting tussles with FAFSA, and I'm very grateful for it, because I wouldn't have been able to go to school without it, but also at what cost. I'm well into six figures in owing, and so anything they can do to fix that system, kudos.
Yeah, I mean, I got so much to say on this, man. In empathizing deeply with what Doc is saying is, and Doc's right about something, and I didn't realize it immensely until this year. So I want to share a story with you all later in the podcast about sort of my nephew, so my brother-in-law's nephew, who we love, man. It's three brothers. We love them all. This is his sister's kids. Logan is going to be the first in that family to go to college. So his parents did not go to college. His brothers did not go to college. He's truly first gen going to college, and he is a senior right now. So we've been helping him out with the whole application process. Part of this story is what Doc was saying, was that I realized something really interesting. He's applying to, you know, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Northridge, you know, the UC schools, right? And what I'm noticing is that the only level of financial aid that they accept as an indicator is the FAFSA. So that was kind of the case with Doc, right? Like, that was probably the case with you. As Doc put it, when you were applying to highfalutin schools and shit.
It's all jealousy, baby. It is all jealousy.
No, man, it's fun as hell. And I love talking about this stuff, because this is stuff that I counsel kids on when they're applying to college. There's something called CSS, the CSS profile. And if you're not familiar, if anyone's on the show, this is something done by the College Board. And if you're not familiar with the CSS profile, you've got to find out about this immediately. What does CSS stand for? Actually, I never found out. And I'm even looking at their website, and it doesn't say what the hell CSS stands for. And I'm like, oh, what does this stand for? All I know is this. The CSS profile, in addition to when I applied for FAFSA and Pell Grants and all that stuff, right? Because FAFSA is how you get Pell Grants and subsidized loans.
By the way, it's the college scholarship service, brother.
College, thank you. College scholarship service. Man, I never knew that until today. See, you're a good ass researcher, man.
It was 3 seconds. It was just a 3-second search.
Service.
That's that Cal State education there, David. You know what I'm saying? That's that
East Bay. East Bay.
Y'all to walk around in nature. You know what I'm saying? I was hard skills, baby. No, not really.
What?
I'm saying, like, they taught us how to do general research. Y'all got to play with nature and think about evolution in life. You know, we had to do real work in the CSUs. We didn't. It was terrible. Go ahead.
No, man.
My education was not good in college.
Okay. I know. The very low grade research that we did wound up being the textbooks for the CSUs and the UT Austins of the world, which, by the way, that's funny. My TA became my friend's professor at UT. Like, that's the level of shit that was going on at places like Stanford. It was nuts. We applied to the college scholarship service, bro. And what happens is that when you apply that, it's a significantly more holistic look of your expenses. So the FAFSA will take things in consideration, like what is your income, you know, how many kids do you have? The CSS will get granular. You have 4 kids. Okay. Instead of just being that's it, it's like, where are these 4 kids at in life? If they're a baby, we're taking that into consideration because that's a ludicrously high expense. If they're in college, we're taking that into consideration because that's a ludicrously high expense. And what the CSS profile did is you applied once and it went directly to all of these colleges. And that is how these highfalutin colleges determined whether or not you could afford to go to this place. So forget about the affordability of providing the maximum amount of Perkins loans and subsidized loans and so forth. This is a holistic look into like our finances and saying Omar doesn't have the money to come to Stanford or Notre Dame or Brown or Georgetown or Swarthmore or all the other places that he applied to, but we really want him here. So what we're going to do is take our endowment money, which is where the real money is at. The colleges are the ones that have the real money. Harvard's got billions upon billions in their endowment, man, not millions, billions. You know, hanging out since 1636 when Harvard was founded, they have made some very sound investments, probably through a lot of insider trading. Think about Stanford endowment, bro. Stanford was the bedrock for inventing Google. They knew about Google before Google even started. So imagine that endowment, right? So that is where we got a ton of money. So the doc is right. I had the luxury of having these colleges accept this alternative, well, not even alternative, additional method of financial aid that I got in addition to the Perkins loans and the Pell Grants and everything else, man. So when you're applying to like those colleges, and I did the moral of the story is when I was helping Logan out with his college applications, I was like, yo, did you do the CSS profile? Then I had to look up to see which colleges accepted the CSS profile, and none of the colleges he was applying to, not Gonzaga, not the Redlands, not Cal State, Long Beach, or none of the Cal States, bro. None of the UCs. Except the CSS profile, which is nuts, man.
Did the SUNYs take it? I don't know if you looked it up, but did SUNYs take it?
I don't think so. I can do another.
And I'm only asking because the CSU, the UC, and the SUNY and CUNY, like those are like the top. I mean, those are the biggest, you know, college networks in the country. That's why I was just curious if they took them.
I don't know. I don't know what this composition looks like, but the CSS profile is used by approximately only 400 colleges and universities. So it's a pretty small sliver.
Wow. It is. It is very small. No. And that's what I'm saying. I didn't see a lot of that. So what's going on is like the moral of the story is like, this was the resource that we use to get a lot of money from these colleges in what's called need-based scholarship, right? Like, hey, you can't afford this place, but we really want you. So we're going to take our money to pay for you to get here because that's need-based scholarship. Now, if you're only relying on FAFSA and we have the mess that's going on right now, and even, you know, what Doc is talking about in terms of, yo, I'm still dealing with this mess. like it's a much more precarious position than what I was in. I got almost full ride scholarships to every single one of these colleges.
Wow.
Yep.
And it was a result of the CSS profile.
So the CSS profile, out of a total of 6,300 colleges, it's about 6% of the pie. But yeah, that's interesting to hear about. I think for me, I definitely was the recipient of, all kinds of financial aid in both undergrad and then graduate school. And then I did a year of an EDD program and then ended up leaving just because I was burnt out. But yeah, loans, grants, whatever I could get my hands on, essentially. Like even when I was undergrad, my parents, they definitely both worked, but they were not able to help me with any of my college expenses. So I had to work, I had to do work study, and then I had to get financial aid. So I mean, without that, I would not have made it through. So thinking specifically about the FAFSA, this was not included in our preparation materials, but I will share this for you. This is hot off the press. So we're talking about impact, right? So this is from last week, an EdSurge piece. A recent analysis of the Department of Ed's enrollment data suggests that there's been a 40% decline in completion of FAFSA applications of high schoolers. In Virginia, 33 compared to California, which is 46.
Jeez.
So I'm thinking about like, this is like impact, right? These are young, people that need this money, that are unsure if they are going to get this money. And many of them are just totally backing out of even trying to access this money, which means likely to not end up in college, right? Maybe take a gap year, system comes in. A lot of those aren't even going to come back because they're already secured, they're working. So this is going to create a big a bubble, right, for this year. All because, I don't know if it was a government issue. I don't know if, the government sometimes is just with all the bureaucracy, maybe they didn't have the best tech people working behind the scenes to ensure and test that the system was going to work. I don't know, I don't know. And at this point, it kind of doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more here, but these are big numbers. So that's pretty significant. You can assume the rest. But I also, in addition to the work that I did, that the money that I received, I also, and a lot of it I had to pay back, most of it. I just got I was literally like about a couple of years ago, almost done paying off my loans. And then Biden paid off the last of my loans, but it was literally just a couple $1,000s. But I still took it. But yeah,
more than my house is worth.
Yeah. I think relief is on the way, Charles. That's what I've heard. But I know you got to jump through hoops. When I was working at the high school, I worked in a high school for 10 years in Oakland as a teacher, as an advisor, and then as a principal. And this is a big part of our program was, helping mainly first generation college students bring their parents in, having the parents understand the FAFSA, doing this in the classroom, filling out the FAFSA in school, right? It was built into our curriculum. I think without it, I just wonder what those conversations are like right now, for graduating seniors that have been working hard their whole lives, right? And they're motivated and they apply and then they go and do the financial aid thing and the system is broken, right? So, I mean, I guess, turning to like what next? Like, what are some options for young people now? Do they just wait until the system comes on board? I've heard conversations or a push for colleges and universities to push back their timelines, right? But I don't know. I mean, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on like, what are some potential solutions or ideas that you have for young people, or also for I don't think for the Department of Ed, but maybe colleges or universities that are on the receiving end. What should we do?
I mean, shit, dude. Look, I'm with Doc here. I feel like I'm just repeating Doc's. Like, we out here on our own. We out here on our own. And I mean, this is the shit, because I want to use Logan as a metaphor for the situation, because he's literally going through this. He is a California student, first generation Mexican kid who is going through the shit right now in real time, which, by the way, shout out, Bill.
Yeah.
Yo, man, why is that rock so starved, man? What the hell's going on in starved rock? What the shit is that, man? Why that rock so damn hungry? Give that rock a damn sandwich on our behalf, man. So what's going on with Logan is like, he's worried. He's worried shitless, because he's like, these colleges are pressuring me to make a decision into whether or not like I'm going to go, but I don't even have financial aid packets from like UCSD, places that he got in, right? I think he got into USD, he got into Redlands, he got into Gonzaga. He got into, he's waitlisted at UC Santa Cruz, which I think is his number one choice. And it's like, he doesn't have financial aid packages from any of them. Or excuse me, from some of them. So it's like, I'd love to go to USD, but I don't know what the hell USD is offering right now. They've got zero that they're offering me, but Cal State Long Beach is offering me a hell of a good ride, but everyone's pressuring me to make a decision. I think if I were the Secretary of Education, I would try to use my powers as the pulpit, because they have no powers really. Like, the Secretary of Education is all funding. There's no real power in the Department of Education. I don't know if you all know that or not. It is, it is, I don't want to say powerless, because they have the power of the purse and grants. That's it. They've got a pulpit and the power of the purse. I would use that pulpit power to try to convince some of our like university presidents, like, look, who's going to be cool, but like, look out for your low income kids. Can you provide them an extension on when they are accepting into the college? These rich kids, where they're going to go. Like, they know that game. They know the game where, like, if you're Stanford, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Brown, like, maybe Brown, probably Brown. Some of those Ivies, right? In the highfalutin world, Doc, there's a hierarchy. You got your MITs, you got your Stanfords, you got your Harvards, you got your Yales, you got your Princetons, and then you got like your Dartmouths and your UPenns and your Cornells and all those.
That's that elite talk. You're losing us. That's elite talk.
That's exactly right. It's so disgustingly dumb, because I think all those places are just outrageously exceptional. But those kids and those colleges know who's going to go where, bro. Like, yeah, we know this kid's going to go to Stanford. We know this kid's going to go to Harvard. I think for a lot of these other kids that are dealing with, like, I'm trying to get into like USD or Cal State Northridge or Cal State Long Beach, or even like UC Santa Cruz. I think that they have got to push that deadline further to give these kids the time to make an economic decision, because otherwise, now they take a gap year, bro. Do you have any, like, that's devastating, right? Like, some kids may do really well with a gap year. Some kids may be like, I'm never going to go back. Like they're not striking while the kettle's hot. They start working, they get into a groove. Maybe I'll apply next year, maybe apply this year. They lose their grounding, and like, boom. Now the very population that needs college education the most, your low income kids, your low income Latinos, low income blacks, are just getting like once again sidelined, dude. And I'm like, God dang. And isn't that the topic? This is devastating for those low income kids. It's hard enough for them to get to college. Now you're putting all these fucking obstacles in their way.
You get some short money in your pocket, right? And then you want to walk away from that. That's a tough sell. Yeah. There's something else here. I want to make sure that we're reporting on this correctly, because I had heard about this, and so I want to bring this up. So this is what I had heard. This is another story from Chalkbeat. They reported that in January, one of the big first glitches had to do with had blocked students with undocumented parents from completing their financial aid applications for over 2 months. So like, you were born here, your parents are undocumented, and like they're you know, if you're born here, you're literally like you know, you're either a dreamer or you're not a dreamer. But like that's a major issue, and especially in the state of California, when you look at, you know, the applications being down by like 60%, that's a lot of brown young men
David,
and young women. Yeah.
Again, Logan's mom, just as a metaphor,
Yeah.
documented as hell, had the same problem. She was like, I can't get through the system. It keeps kicking me out. I can't sign. It's just a signature. She had to like go and like rudimentarily go to like Kinko's and shit and print some shit out and scan it and send it in with her signature. And even that was like, we're not going to accept that. It's a mess out there right now, dude. And by the way, Bill, thank you for trying to feed that damn rock, man. You go out there and you try again, baby. I believe in you. But it's a fiasco, because this is not just a situation for our undocumented kids. This is our situation for like every kid right now.
Yeah. And where is, and this is interesting. I mean, I would say, you know, one of the reasons why maybe you haven't heard about it is because, you know, it's the perfect kind of story that if it's highlighted in the right way, it draws attention on the Biden administration, right? Mm-hmm. As we're going into an election year. We are in an election year, right? So, you know, there's like this political angle to it also where, you know, this should be a story that gets put out on news. You know, it's pretty much a classic failure of government and government bureaucracy to function, even on a basic level. But again, like, you just don't hear a lot of people talking about it. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the forefront on today's show.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to move us on, but I have a answer around just, you know, what you can do to help. I mean, I think you gotta kind of need to take it back to the FDR days, like with the New Deal. Like, I think that we can be smarter in this country. And I think that, you know, like, set up a system. What does the country need? Like, during the New Deal, after coming off of everything that it came off of, it said the country needs infrastructure, needs roads. We're going to pump money into that to give people jobs that they need while also solving this problem. I think that right now we're in a perfect storm, a terrible storm, where the price of college is rising. There's this financial aid stuff is just in lurch. We don't know what's going to happen with all this debt. And at the same time, colleges are just systematically losing their rigor and their value overall. So I have a watered down product that also costs more. Man. And now we're in the proliferation of, like, you know, not needing college degrees. I think that if you take the FDR approach, it's like, hey, where are we missing in the intellectual community? Like, what do we need to be in 20 years? And it's like, hey, if you want to go into this field, if you want to go to college to study this, and it's going to be rigorous as hell, but, you know, it'll be subsidized. Like, and we will prioritize, you know, certain populations, because we need to make sure we are a superpower in this area or whatnot. I think that kind of strategy needs to be happening. I think it's hard for people to grasp the work that's happening around financial aid and student debt and things like that, because a lot of people are not tied to that. Only 30% of the country, maybe 35% of the country has college degrees or pursued it. Like, it's not the majority. I think people with degrees tend to think that everybody or the majority of people have degrees. They don't. So a lot of the country does not give a damn about your debt, because they said, well, we didn't make that choice. You made that choice. But that choice was made kind of under duress, right? Like, from where I came from, it's like, the only way I'm going to make it here is with a college degree and this, that, and the third. And then you make these promises, and then those promises aren't kept. So, you know, I think we know what the problems are. I think people are articulating those, but I think the solution needs to be something that can help all Americans and help us thrive kind of as a country. And I think that taking the FDR approach and, like, really being a strong presidential leader, like, I think we need that. I think if Biden can kind of step in and say, look, this is what we're doing because we need it, because we're falling off in the intellectual space, we're falling off in math skills, we're falling off in literacy, or whatever the case is. You know, we kind of got to have that mentality of FDR mixed with, like, the space race. Like, remember when you read about the space race and the Russians and the Cold War, like, there was a lot of pushing by the United States around the intelligence and who's going to win this thing. And I don't want us to have another Cold War, and knock on wood, because there's a lot of things happening that looks like the precipice of World War III or a civil war. So I don't want to even speak that up. but I think we need that sense of urgency before we need that sense of urgency.
Yeah. Here's another just another piece. This is out of Oregon. They're talking about a particular program. It's probably like an upward bound kind of program called Escalera. You know, these programs that operate in high schools, kind of mentoring young people. You know, doing like college preparation kind of stuff. But you know, there too, they're experiencing the same pinch with some of the same associated numbers. So it's happening all over the place. I wonder, like, you know, I think you nailed it, Charles. Like, we're living in this moment where the value of a college education is definitely like called into question. We've talked about that on the show, especially considering the costs. And then, you know, for me, this also calls into question, like, a quick fix would be for, you know, the government to just like fast track funding directly to the schools to cover these costs, right? Instead of moving it to the student and then from the student to the school. You know, this is not rocket science. It's something they can figure out. The money's there. It's not a money issue. It's just a way of, you know, documenting and moving the money around. But then that calls into question for me,
making sure it
like,
goes to the right places, not like with the banks, right? Not when you bail out the banks and it's going to bonuses when you should not be getting the bonus this year. I didn't mean to cut you off. I know somebody in the crowd was going to be like, but we don't trust those bastards.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've already bungled it once. The other thing this calls into question for me is, like we say, like the Texas State University system, or Chicago State, or California State. These are public colleges and universities. But are they really public if they cost money? They're actually not public, right? I think that's the interesting question of calling them public colleges in a public university system. Mm-hmm. They're not public unless they are actually accessible, you know, to everyone that wants to attend, and they are not. And so I think that's an interesting conversation which we could have. I mean, a private school is a private school. You know, you got your people that go to your Harvards and your Stanfords and all these places, you know. But looking at you, Omar. But, you know, we're just talking about like the big public university systems. And I also think it's interesting that, you know, we haven't really heard from Joe Biden on this. Sleepy Joe. Where has Sleepy Joe been? I don't think we can call him Sleepy Joe anymore because it sounds like Trump has been falling asleep in his in court this week as well. So, you know, Sleepy Don, Sleepy Joe.
I saw that, man.
They're both asleep at the wheel. It's a mess.
It sounds like if public universities got the same scrutiny that charter schools got, we might be in a better space right now.
Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I think if universities in general, right, got that same level of scrutiny, we may be in a very different place. And I think the scrutiny comes from like the parents, but this is, again, an obvious factor to our audience and an obvious factor to us. And the reason why you've got a lot of scrutiny in places like Harvard and Princeton and Stanford isn't just the fact that, like, think about who's on those people's boards and think about like their histrionics. Think about those parents. Like, these are parents who are like, they're the kind of people that are like, don't you know who I am? Which is the most like jerk off thing to say all the time of anybody, right? What disparages me is think about the parents of our kids at your Cal State LAs, your Cal State Fullertons, your Cal State Long Beaches, right? Like, these are our parents, the parents of my kids. These are kind of like, you know, my mom to a certain extent. These are parents that are like, hey man, we're trying our best, but we don't understand how to navigate these complex issues in these complex institutions. And whereas like these highfalutin parents will know how to, you know, like I'll get a conversation with the president going, I'll get a conversation with the dean. I went to school with the dean. The dean was my like student that I mentored. The kids that are in most need are in a predicament because the parents have no idea how to issue complaint or organize themselves around this and work on providing that much needed pressure to those presidents to be like, what are you guys doing to kind of calm this down this year to help our kids out? and it's a more silent situation. And if those presidents are like, well, we didn't hear any complaints, and it's like those parents don't even know where to begin, bro. They have no idea how to write you. And if they did, like, you know, are you ignoring it? Are you taking it as seriously as like the vice president of Goldman Sachs or the president of, like, you know, Ernst and Young called up? And I think that our parents have more to say because these kids, in my opinion, need it very much so, like much more so than I think a lot of other folks. So it just becomes a compounding issue where, like, the kids are put into a complicated position because of what's happening to them. The parents are compromised because they're trying very hard, but have no idea what to do or how to navigate the system. And then at the top, the very people that are making these decisions may not be hearing from these parents because they have no idea how to voice these concerns. Before I jump out, I want to say to the real, I don't even know how to pronounce
Nikki. It's Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki. That's what I thought, because it's Nikki J, right? Like her
Yep,
last
the
name.
real Nikki J.
Yeah, to the real Nikki. I'm with you, right? Like, what do? Community college. I'm with you on that one. But speaking from experience, what often happens, and this isn't just the statistical thing that happened with Latinos where they go to community college and then drop out. Mexican American goes to night school, takes Spanish, get to B, is that these colleges, interestingly enough, make it complicated, meaning that if they feel that a course you took at community doesn't link up almost identically with something that they're offering, they will deny you that credit. So when I took some community college courses over the summer, I met with someone very specific at Stanford who was like, let me look at the course catalog with you, ours and theirs. And it's like, let's link these things up. This course will count, this course will count, this course will count. And the courses I thought would count wouldn't. So a lot of kids may go to community college under the best of auspices, taking these courses thinking, hey man, these credits will transfer. And a lot of times they won't transfer. So that's another complication. Like, I think it's a great idea, but then there's that complication of I was resourceful enough and lucky enough to know, like, I better go talk to this counselor specifically because I don't want to make this investment at community college, all this time, all this money, and then have it all just go to shit. And like, yeah, but that varies state to state.
Yeah.
So like those existing agreements vary radically state to state.
Yeah, it's actually really strong in California. It's actually
it is. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, so two quick thoughts. I think you know, if you look at like the money that is the, you know, where the need is, obviously if you need money to go to college, you are probably living in a particular income bracket, or your family is, right? And it's a lot of Black children, a lot of brown children, and so I mean, you were saying it earlier, like, who is this impacting, right? And so that's maybe reason why it's not that big of a story, right? But I think it's already, even when it's working, it's already very complicated. I would agree. I was a community college transfer student, and it wasn't seamless. I did it, and there were classes that, you know, you were like, is this going to count? Is this not going to count? It's already a challenge, you know, for a first generation or a low income person to go into college and actually, you know, just logistically make their way through. Forget about the coursework and getting the right grades, and being able to pay your bills, but just making it through. You start adding these little wrinkles of like, well, okay, maybe do community college, or there's a wrinkle with financial aid. It just makes it so much easier for people to peel off, right? So this is a fresh content here. This is you know, asking ChatGPT to create an image of young people that are being impacted by this FAFSA debacle. So, you know,
yeah, man.
There it is.
I mean,
yeah, man, it's real, man. It's impacting hundreds of thousands of, if not more, young people today, man. And yeah,
and I have a stat for you all. So like, let's just give some perspective, right? Excuse me, nagging cough still. Like, when you look at America, and this is a quick Google search, you know, as of this year, as of fall of 2023, there are about 18.1 million students that are enrolled in degree granting colleges and universities. All right, like, and like that's 15 million in undergrad, 3.1 million in graduate school, right? That's how many. So 18 million. Let's just round it up to a nice 20, right? As of February 2023, more than 476 million economic impact payments or stimulus checks were sent to households affected during the pandemic. Like just so when we talk about scale, you know what I'm saying? Like 400, let's say 450 plus million Americans versus 20 Americans, right? And I think so, like with this college system, for people to like care and to understand it and know it, these colleges have to start working towards the greater good of, I think, the American people. I think that there should be some type of freeze, some type of like, oh, we're going to help this, we're going to stimulate this. But it's like, Arkansas, you are in charge of solving problem X that helps Arkansanians. Like, you know, California, you in New York and Texas are big. So there are 3 problems that, like, if you're solving this problem for like the everyday California citizen, like you get what I'm saying? Like, I just think that I'm sorry, far be it for us on an education podcast to expect the people that run universities and higher learning to actually have intelligent strategy of how to like actually utilize this so-called public good to serve the public. You know, what if there was, I know there are certain schools that might be a lab for homelessness or whatever the case is, but if they said, listen, for 80% of the CSU students that need this financial aid, it'll be completely free, but you're gonna solve the homeless problem, the homeless crisis in California. Like, that's your challenge. Now, you know, you might not get all the way there, but you got to set a goal to get near it. You know what I mean? I think sometimes we miss the scale, and it's like the average American probably doesn't care about the fact that two out of 3 of us have student loans or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But damn near 500 million people qualified for the stimulus package. I didn't qualify to get a stimulus check. A lot of people that we know didn't qualify for like a stimulus check. You know what I mean? I just think we have to just be smarter about this stuff, because if we don't, our young people, these low income young people that we keep telling are the future and that this world belongs to them and that we want to listen to and we want to love Gen Z and the generation Alpha that's coming after. I think it's Alpha or whatever. I probably got that wrong. We're forcing them to navigate this this broken FAFSA college loan system without any real solutions or progressive thoughts for them. And you know, that I'll just stop there because I'm in it. I owe a lot. It's 6 figures tied to how much I owe. But I would have had no problem. I came and I served my country. I almost did like an indentured servitude, except you do get paid. But like, I did exclusive nonprofit work. I've only worked in the nonprofit sector until I started my own company while still working for a nonprofit, because that was the promise told to me if I went to college and needed to borrow money. And here we are 20 years later, and it's still a struggle. So, you know, not what was me, but let's think about this intelligently. And I would love to hear a bold actual plan for how higher learning can help the average American, not just those who are privileged enough to be able to go and step on a university campus.
Yep.
Oh man, that's what's up. And this is kind of my final thought, and if I have the opportunity to kind of jump into that, and then
I'm facilitating today's show. I'm facilitating today's show. So
do whatever I want to do.
Let's go into closing thoughts. Omar,
you're trying to tell
closing
Bruce
thoughts.
Wayne what to do. That's very cute. Telling Bruce Wayne what to do here. Did you ever see Phil Hartman play Donald Trump, where he was just like an asshole and he was like, "What is this? I'll buy and sell this dog and pony show of yours 5 times over." He sounded like a Simpsons character.
I never saw that one.
No, deep respects, man. Thank you for hosting today. David, great topic, great show. I'm excited for my topic coming up. Charles, are you next? And then I'm up.
You got it, brother. You take it.
Next week? All right, let me see what I can do. I may have to wait till the week after, because I'm going to bring in a guest. But just quick final thought. I thought what David said was like insanely astute, which is like so basic, and yet we forget. If you're a public institution, why are you charging all this money? And like, if you look at European colleges, dude, those things are like basically free, like totally free. Canadian colleges, Australian colleges, colleges in New Zealand, right? Like, and it's not just exclusive to those places. Like in the Middle East, free, because they want to make sure that their population is educated to take high earning, high skilled work, because that is the way that the world is going. And I think that this country's got a very interesting ideology when it comes to education. And I'll be very honest, is that I actually think that there's a conspiracy. And I think that conspiracy is very simple. If we keep a sector of the population highly uneducated, they will consistently have to do low wage labor, and they will do all the work for us. And I think I will always say this, right? Carlin said it best. And it was something like, the rich do 0% of the work. The middle class pay all the taxes. The lower class is doing the majority of this work, but they're just there to scare the shit out of the middle class, to see like, this is one step away from your reality. And I'm mixing what he said, right? Mm-hmm. He said something to the tune of like, hey man, like the rich don't pay taxes and they don't work. The middle class pay all the taxes and do a ton of the work. Your lower wage classes are doing all the work and are there to scare the shit out of the middle class. Meaning, I think that there's a conspiracy in this country to make sure that people are uneducated. And when you are making public education, which should be a facet of a free institution to ensure that those who wish to garner a higher education in order to keep the United States competitive with high skill work are not given that opportunity, what you're essentially doing is almost guaranteeing that those folks will become low wage earners, because Doc has shown the statistics on the show time and time again with African Americans, with the Mexican American community, with the Latinx community, the difference between those who have a high school degree to a college degree in terms of their wage earnings and wage earning potential, y'all, is just fucking exponential.
Massive. It's massive.
It is massive. It is a game changer.
Real, man.
And that is like, that's the kind of shit that gets you home ownership, stability, gets things set up for the next generation. If you're constantly struggling, then the next generation is going to be constantly struggling, man. And it's like, you talk about these schools that I went to, and I was a minority, not just as a Mexican. I was a minority at a place like Stanford because I was one of the few kids who got in under a free scholarship who needed it, whose mom and dad weren't like straight up crazy affluent or on the board of directors of this or running that. Like, those kids had money, those kids have privilege, and those kids had those things because they had all the resources. They were the ones going to tennis classes and SET classes and fucking Kumon math and badminton and fucking extra tutors and going to Deerfield and Choate and Andover. Those levels of sophisticated multi-generational wealth are established with the stability of the home and property ownership. So it's just like, yo, man, you want to keep fucking us up? Like, keep charging a shitload of money for public university. So I thought you were spot on about that one, Dave.
Yeah.
All right. I got to go, everybody. Love you all very much, man. Fucking, that's what I got to say. I got to go, man. That's why
he said, I'm gonna do my 10-minute final thought and leave before y'all go ahead, man.
Hey,
we have 15 seconds left, Charles, between you and I.
It's all good. My final thought is a great show. Peace out, man. Go do your thing, Omar.
I love you guys, man. I'll talk to y'all next week.
No worries, man.
Be in touch.
You know, I know it was an ambitious topic. I think it was a good topic. I tried to weave in answers to each of these questions. I got to most of them except for, or programs like One Goal and Peak Education that actually are used to assist people. So I'll roll that into my final thought. And then my final thought is, listen, like there's a what should happen and there's a what does happen. And let me just tell you, like, we can talk about what should happen all day. I like it. It makes us feel good. But what's going to happen is, if you don't know this information, if you don't have somebody helping you navigate, you're going to suffer. And I don't want you to suffer. And ignorance is not bliss in this moment. It will hurt you. What you don't know will hurt you. So if you are a parent that did not navigate school, or, you got a kid that's going in, go get you some help. Find somebody, programs at your school, find a One Goal or Peak, or there's a bunch of them. There's something in your community and in your neighborhood. There's a way to kind of do this, and people with that information, you know, they take advantage of it. I just want to I'll leave you with this to help people out. It is not an infinite amount of money. Financial aid, look at it as this is a pot. This is a pot, okay? And that pot runs out of money quick, and there's money that gets left in there never to be touched or never to be claimed. You need to learn how to take the money, get access to the money in that pot for you or for your child. And there are ways to do it because we leave stuff out there. So utilize the resources, the same internet that we use to look up Beyonce or talk about Santana or look up, you know, what CSS means, can also help you find out how to get the most financial aid grants, not, you know, money, Pell grants that you know, money that you don't have to pay back. And if you do got to borrow money, know that them people gonna want their money and have a plan. And I had to shirk that stuff to the wind because I felt like if I didn't go the college route, that I'd be doing something significantly detrimental to my life. And if that came with the debt price tag, then so be it. And now I'm living it, right? And so there's some good to that and there's some bad. But I thought it was a good show, man. You know, we tried to navigate it, but thank you for putting it together. And sorry, we kind of went all over the place, David. But I think we were able to hit some of the main points that you wanted to touch, hopefully.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I think for me, closing thoughts quickly, I want to know what happened, right? And so this is my issue with with government, right? Government screws something up and you never actually figured out what happened. This is why charter schools exist, right? People wanted to free themselves from the tyranny of the bureaucracy, right? And now you have this massive institution known as the Department of Education that runs the FAFSA application grant process, and they screwed something up. They didn't have the right people there. They didn't test this new system. It's a basic for any kind of tech process. So I think, you know, and for them to be able to say like, oh, we messed up, we're going to do better going ahead. We need to identify what actually happened, right? So I'm still looking for that information. I think there's definitely like a short-term fix that government needs to own up to quickly. I think I would love to see, probably not going to see, Biden step in and speak on this for a number of different reasons, which I said earlier. It's an election year, and you typically don't want to, get you don't want to admit to a massive government failure as you're, leading up to an election. And then I think the third thing is this calls into question what we talked about just a while ago of then the next step is to get really honest about the definition of a public college and public university. If they're truly public, as Bill Conrad says here, they need to be accessible to everybody, right? And so that's the bigger conversation, which we'll take on at some point. But thank you for engaging in this topic. It's timely. I definitely empathize with all the young people that are out there and families and educators that are doing their best to try and navigate this. I know it's not easy, but hopefully people are getting the resources that they need in school, out of school, etc. So thank you all for joining us. South Star Classroom, episode 138. And we will be back at you next week.
We will. Peace out, y'all. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace.